Oh, hey there. Hi, my name is Don, and thanks for joining me. I'm going to take you on a little adventure with me. Here's the story. I live in Utah, so I am completely landlocked. Every place I've ever gone on a boat, I've never been able to really go anywhere except up the lake, back down the lake, up the reservoir, back down the reservoir. And so I'm at the point in my life where I'm ready to take the next step in the evolution of my boating life. And I want to buy a boat that's big enough for me to ultimately retire onto, and I want to be able to go to Alaska on my own schedule. So that's what this vlog is going to be about. I'm going to bring my daughters along to kind of help tell the story here. We've got an old three-legged dog. We'll let her show up from time to time. And hopefully we won't make too many mistakes along the way, although I'm expecting to make a few. So we got a lot to learn. Before we get started, I just want to take just a couple of minutes. I don't want to bore you, but I want to take a couple of minutes and just let you kind of give you a quick history of my boating career, if you will, so that you can figure out that I have actually had a boat in the water before. So I started out with a 24-foot chaparral. And when I got that, my girls were little tiny girls, and I was married at the time, and we got along pretty good on that little boat. We took it to Lake Powell down in southern Utah quite a bit, and up to Flaming Gorge quite a bit. In fact, towards the end of the ownership of that boat, we kept it in a slip on Flaming Gorge. So it was a good little boat. I say little, it was a 24-footer. That's not a tiny boat. But of course, anybody who's had a boat before knows that whenever you've got a boat, after a little while you put them in the water, and everybody tells me that you put them in the water and they shrink. They don't really, but it seems like they do. And you wind up going through this.
Okay, so this is the boat from the inside at Lake Powell. So we're just sitting here contemplating how bad we need a bigger boat. Because I'm scrunched up in the bow. There's Samalama, who we can't really see because it's too dark.
There you go. Yay.
Shine the light on her. Well, turn off that cabin light maybe. That's a little better. So there's Sam.
Red eyes.
And we're down here at Lake Powell. We just finished a great home-cooked meal. What do we have, Sam?
Home-cooked from a box.
Turkey and mashed potatoes.
Turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes, cooked by Dad. He's the greatest. Okay, so fishing poles over here. Big stain on the bottom of that cushion. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks nasty. It's not that bad. And here we are. This is as big as it gets, so we need a bigger boat. Or less kids or something. Ooh, and there's a thought. Anyway, say goodnight, Rachel.
Good night, Rachel.
Okay, so the 2-foot-itis kicked in. We decided that the chaparral was not quite going to be big enough to go forward with. So along the way, though, long story short, I got into sailing. I bought a little sailboat, and it was initially out on the Great Salt Lake. And I bought that right as I was going through a divorce. So I don't know if anybody watching this has been through a divorce, but I can tell you that it just like messes with your noggin, and you wind up spending all this time rolling everything around in your head, and it becomes really distracting, depressing, frustrating, you know, all sorts of negative emotions while you're going through that process. But what happened is I bought this little sailboat, and it was like therapy for me when I would go sailing, and I kept it out on the Great Salt Lake when I would go sailing out there. I found that when I was paying attention to the wind and the sails and the ropes and learning how to sail and all that kind of stuff, I really would wind up checking out of all the rest of the negative, stressful stuff that was going on in my life. And it was a form of, I think, kind of therapy for me. So I had that boat for, I still have it actually. It's right outside that window in the driveway. But here's what happened with the sailboat is the Great Salt Lake, where we kept it, has been, you know, Utah's been in drought conditions for a long time. And the lake got so low in the marina that the keels were basically sticking in the mud while the boats were in the slip. So you couldn't get in and out of the marina, you couldn't use your boat. So a couple of years ago, the state finally approved some money for the marina to come in and have somebody dredge all the mud out of the marina to get it deeper water, since the lake has not been going up at all to recover from the drought. So we had to pull all of our boats out of there in order to let them do that work. So I built a little trailer, or I had a little trailer built. We picked the boat up, dropped it on the trailer, I brought it home, and I've had it here at home for a while now, and I've been kind of rebuilding that boat and cleaning it up and modernizing it just a little bit. I mean, it's an old boat, it's not too fancy or anything like that, but I'm just kind of getting ready to move on to its next life. So anybody who will tell you that sailboats can't fly, I got proof otherwise right here. There it is, doing its best Peter Pan impression as they lifted it out of the lake and set it on the trailer. So we decided, as we got back to the power boating side of life, I decided that, as I showed you in that video, the boat was just too small for what we needed. And so I started looking for the next power boat. And I wound up settling on a 32-foot Sea Ray that we found down on Lake Mead. That one was a bank repossessed boat, and so it was kind of nasty in terms of some upholstery up in the cockpit hadn't been kept up. The previous owner and the bank, and nobody would ever put the canvas over the top, so everything was really weathered and really bad shape. We wound up buying that boat and having some upholstery work done on it. The inside was fine, the engines had pretty low hours. It was a great boat. Put it in up at Flaming Gorge and boated up there for a while. And then one year we had a little disaster with the boat. So the marina that pulled the boat out to winterize it for the winter had some snafu with the paperwork. That what they think happened is they think that they had two pieces of paper that got stuck together. And they had my boat's information on this side. The guys pulled the boat out, winterized the potable water system, flipped the boat over on the clipboard, did something else, came back the next day or whatever, and now they were looking at someone else's boat information, and they drained the blocks and everything on that boat. So with this happening, my boat never got the blocks drained. And I don't know how familiar you are with Flaming Gorge, but it's up in the mountains, quite a ways up, and it's up by the Uintas. It gets really cold, like 20 below up there. And so over that winter, the boat sat in the boatyard there with fresh water in both the blocks, and it just blew the blocks up, cracked them, destroyed the engines. So the boatyard wound up putting new engines in for me, but they pretty much killed an entire summer. We couldn't use the boat. It took a while to get all that done. And by this point, the girls were getting old enough that they were kind of going off to college and stuff, and I was getting busier. We just didn't really seem to be having too much time together to go spend on that boat. So I wound up selling that one to a couple that drug it down to San Diego and put it in the ocean down there. And I believe that was a good fit. The boat is probably getting used a lot more than I was able to use it. They said they can boat, I think they said 200 days a year or something like that, like virtually all the time. And for the last little bit, other than the sailboat project out in the driveway, I've been without a boat. So I decided that it was time to get serious on this plan of having something I can live aboard and take to Alaska on my own time, or give up on that plan. And I'm not one for giving up on stuff. And so here we are. I'm starting in my search for a new boat, and I'm gonna go do what I said I'm gonna do. I'm gonna wind up with a boat that I can have in Puget Sound, somewhere up there in the Northwest, and I'm gonna start working my way up towards Alaska, learning the ropes. There's a lot of stuff I know that I don't know. I've never had to deal with the tides before. Currents, we don't have currents in reservoirs to speak of. Bottom growth on the boats. Most of the boats I've had, we either pull them out and put them on the trailer and drag them home every trip, or even if you do leave one in, like say Flaming Gorge in the slip there, they don't really get a chance to really have anything grow on there. So never really had to deal with that. Never had a diesel boat before. Never used a radar. Never really had to use a chart plotter. You know, just all the stuff that I think probably the people who boat on the ocean all the time maybe somewhat take for granted. And I don't know any of that. So I'm really excited to learn it. And again, I'm just going to chronicle the heck out of this process as we go through this. So this is episode numero uno of this process. We're going to call it Landlocked No More, because we're going to be getting out of this landlocked state of Utah. And we're just going to, if we make a mistake, we're going to put it on tape. So bear with us. I'm sure it'll be exciting. We're gonna fumble our way through this. So thanks for joining me. As we get this rolling, I hope you'll subscribe and do all that stuff, because YouTube kind of helps everybody survive with this stuff. You know the drill if you've watched any of these. And this is just episode 1. Please come back next time. We're gonna actually show you the boats that we're looking at, and gonna go start looking, and we're gonna get this process rolling. So again, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy this. I know I'm going to. I'm kind of turning a major page in my life and moving on to the next chapter. I think it's going to be fun, and I hope you'll come along with me. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.